And we're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet Boy where we have a casual and informal conversation about Star Trek. Today we're focused on Star Trek the original series. We finally got here. We got to a new place in Starfleet Boy canon in history. We are rediscovering the past. That's very awesome. I'm glad you brought your Enterprise. Hold on, I want to give you... Database Boy, can you please put Humbert on the screen? Thank you. There we go. Just so everyone knows, since I stopped doing Drunk Space Nine, Database Boy was out of a job, so now he works for Starfleet Boy as well. And we have Fathery here too. Woohoo! That's exciting.
Oh,
all right, the gang's all here. I know. I didn't tell everyone about you, Fathery.
Surprise guest.
The righteous beard. He's looking like a Viking.
Fathery can hear us without his headphones. That's amazing.
He's lucky. I hate these headphones.
The doctor hates headphones. We don't have anyone in the audience, so nothing to be nervous about, guys, but you might start seeing comments pop up. So I'm going to do this episode summary.
I'm gonna interrupt your episode summary to say hi to Emma officially for the first time.
Hello.
No, it's not her first time.
Well,
it's the first
I
time
haven't
I've
seen.
Oh,
We haven't seen each other. We're just meeting in person. Hello.
God damn it, Captain.
I'll say
look,
hi
we're
to
on
Emma
TV.
also.
and I think this is the first time that
Hi.
Fathery's
Yeah.
meeting the doctor,
Hi.
right?
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
it
this our
is.
first time meeting.
Hello.
So when
I'm
we get
sure
a live
we've seen
audience,
each
we can all
other's
pretend like we all know each
appearances
other.
separate, but-
Welcome to the Starfleet Boys version of the USS Cerritos, which, by the way, speaking of which, I just want to take a moment to make Trek on the Tube extremely jealous.
Oh my god, where's my merch?
I got the mug. I
Send
got the
it to me.
T-shirt on order.
I need a Star
Well,
Trek mug.
I have to order it through Sahel because through
It's
through
a blast
Captain Starfleet
shield,
Boy.
it's a blast shield, and it goes down and it goes up, blast shield! I just made the doctor so mad. Look at his face.
I couldn't order my Lower Decks merch from Canada, so I had to get Captain here to send it to me.
And then I went on a craziness thing, and I got a Daystrom Institute shirt as well.
Is this still a surprise for me, or is that a surprise special?
I went and I got this too. There's
Is
a
that the
surprise for you.
Federation?
Yeah, that's the Future Federation, the Discovery Federation. Whatever, we don't know what it is.
Is that
I got
mine?
this one's mine. Yours is in a box, waiting to be. Oh my God, he's like, is that mine? And then Star Trek also lets you personalize a shirt, so I got a Starfleet Boy shirt.
Wow.
I want one of
nice.
those.
You can
Yeah.
get one.
You have another one like that, similar to that.
Yeah, but it doesn't say Star. This is the first shirt This is the first anything I ever owned that says Starfleet Boy
Wow.
on it, so it's really exciting. Yeah, thanks for making that happen, CBS. All right, all right. We don't have a lot of time.
Oh.
Father, we can only stay for about 47 minutes, and we try to
That's a
keep
good
these.
number.
we
But
try.
that's just the summary, man.
No recording, Father. Thanks for asking. Oh, thanks for number one. It's so great. Oh my God, this is so multi right now.
We don't have a live chat. Usually, I can click on live chat and we can see live comments, but there's no.
Oh, that's weird. Well, there's no one in the. That's really weird.
Did you deactivate a thing?
We're not going to worry about it right now. We'll see. We'll see. We do have an audience member though. That's exciting.
So perfect.
Audience, welcome to our live discussion of Star Trek: The Cage. So I'm going to give the episode summary as is per tradition. And so this is the big bang of Star Trek. This is where it all started quietly in a boardroom at CBS, I guess, where a bunch of executives and creatives alike sat together. Gene Roddenberry, I forget the other two fellows. I remember, I think one is Robert Butler, presented this to NBC. It was NBC actually at the time, right?
NBC was the
Yeah.
network that they were
The
pitching
network that
at.
they're pitching it, yeah. And the exec said, "It sucks. Rework it. It has potential, but rework it. We don't want any of this cerebral stuff. It's too smart for our audience. We want more guns ablazing. Take us on a wagon train to the stars." So Gene Roddenberry and crew went back and reworked it, and we got TOS. So this is kind of like the red carpet event to our discovery of the original series on Starfleet Boy, and I'm really excited that you guys are here. So that was my episode summary. What'd you guys think? Wait, sorry, and wait, I forgot. A lot of crazy stuff happens in this episode, including the introduction of the Telosians, who are reintroduced to audiences in real life in real time later in the menagerie, and also we get a little bit of an idea of what Star Trek is about. We don't get. I don't think they ever mention Starfleet, if I'm not mistaken. I don't even think we get a mention of the Federation, really.
I mean, they didn't figure that out till
later, yeah. So this is like,
later,
this is like the earliest presentation. Ooh, we have a we have Pop Culture Caleb. He says, "I have been summoned." Welcome, Pop Culture Caleb. So let's just. Was that a good summary? Was that adequate?
That's fine. That's good. I like
Trek on the Tube. Trek on the Tube didn't interrupt me.
Yeah.
By the way, I want to take a moment also to point out where we are in the timeline, and I'm going to use this really awesome
Very nice.
map that Trek on the Tube worked on with Gary. They created it together. So this is the entire timeline
We
of
already
Star
have
Trek.
plenty of notes for corrections and alterations.
Yes, but that being said, this is the most current version of this version of the timelines, and I love this version. I stare at it. I want a gigantic print to put on my wall. I remember when there were posters like this in the 80s that you could get at like the record store.
Once we
that
get
were
it
made
pretty flawless,
and
I
stuff
think
like
we
that.
could
It was
start.
pretty
We
cool.
could start printing posters and
So we're gonna zoom in, guys, and we're gonna show you that using this beautiful artwork. Do you guys see all that? Is that cool? Is that working?
Yeah.
So this takes place. I'm gonna write on your map. I'm really sorry about this.
No.
Hold on.
download another one. It's free.
Where do I do that though? Hold on. Oh, here we go. I got a pencil. Do I use red? Is this red? No, that's not what I'm gonna use.
Sign up the devil.
How do I do this? Oh, here we go. I think I can do it like this. All right. There we go. All right. So this takes place right around. I don't know what this shape I'm making is.
Pretty sure you're wrong. I'm pretty sure it takes place before the original series, but after Strange New Worlds.
It takes place in 2254, so 2 years before Discovery Season 1.
Thank you,
Oh,
Fathery.
Sorry. Excuse me.
I'm pretty sure you're wrong, number one. I'm pretty sure you're wrong. No, just kidding.
I don't know why. I was thinking of the accent for some reason. I was thinking of the end. This is the beginning.
Oh, welcome. Chris says this is the first time you've seen Emma on Starfleet Boy. It's not your first time on Starfleet
it's
Boy,
not.
but she is a rare guest, so that's cool.
I'm a unicorn. Hopefully
So is that
not for long.
so this is where we are in the cage. So what did you guys think of the cage? Like who was watching? Who's seen it for the first time? How many times have you guys seen it? What's the deal?
Oh my god, I've seen this over a dozen times, I think. I don't know. I watched the original series a lot, and I've seen this one a lot. So I used to have the VHS tape that had the black and white footage before they discovered all the color footage. You know, that introduction to Gene Roddenberry.
Oh, that's amazing.
So you
So what's happened
that a lot.
What's happened to Trek on?
I guess he doesn't like the cage.
Trek on the? No, he's got it too.
He's got the
it.
tape. Look, that's cool.
That's the VHS.
Nice.
Holy crap!
Nice.
Can you hold on? I gotta put you
Yeah,
on
put it
blast.
This
closer.
one.
Here. There
This
you go.
one.
Put it
is
up
the
close.
all-color collector's edition.
Wow.
See? Boom.
Ooh.
I didn't have, mine
Colors.
was the older one that still had the black and white footage in there.
I'm too young. I can't deal with that.
Wow,
one.
that's
No, I'm just kidding.
insane. We saw it in 1986. Humbert and I. When
Do you
it
remember
came
that?
out. I
Yeah,
do remember.
on?
It was when
on-
it aired.
on? Oh, it was on
No,
TV?
it premiered when it. Sorry, we saw it on the TV premiere, I guess.
Right.
Is where we saw
It was a special, and it was hosted. Gene Roddenberry was there. He hosted part of it, and then Patrick Stewart also recorded some bookends before and after the pilot, the airing of the pilot. And I think it was during season 2 of Next Generation that we saw it.
I think so. That would have been
like
no
88,
86.
89.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was 86. So it was actually before Next Generation.
It was
Oh,
like a
when did
30th
Next Generation-
or 20th
86?
No.
anniversary thing. Yeah, TNG was 87.
Yeah. So yeah,
There was-
this was before that.
There's one but they also had one with Patrick Stewart recording bookends to it.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean,
No.
they really milked it. I know on TV alone, I saw The Cage probably like 50 times, like in
Yeah.
syndication. So like I know that like it aired a lot. For some reason, the comments are not working for all you guys, but we're getting a lot of comments, so I'll just share them as they come along. Caleb, is this the first, second, or third pilot? Is there a third pilot? It was only 2 pilots,
No,
right?
there was only 2 pilots.
Read the rest of his comment. It's interesting. I don't
Oh,
read
the first pilot was with Gene Roddenberry's wife as the cap. That's correct, Majel Barrett. The second was with Captain Pike, or the third with Captain Kirk. No. So I mean, it would be cool if there was like a long lost pilot where Majel Barrett was
No.
the captain. That would be amazing.
No, it's just the original pilot that we're going to review today, and then they went back and they recast it with Kirk and everything. So there was only the 2 pilots.
Yeah.
And it was my first time watching this. I hadn't seen it before.
That's right. Your
Oh
first
my
time.
god,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Oh, so what was your overall impression? Let's get into it.
I really loved it. I thought it was really interesting. I mean, I mean,
I don't know why that made me dance. Really
No, it's
happy.
I've seen like a lot of the classic episodes, and I enjoyed just watching it. Like more, in the last like 7 years or so, I'd say I've like seen it on TV and stuff. So I didn't really grow up like very young with it. But I knew that my mom liked it, and I've seen like some of the classic episodes, like Trouble with Tribbles, and we watched like The Naked Time because we saw George Takei live, and that's his favorite episode. But it was my first time seeing this episode, and it will be my first time seing a lot of the other episodes
That's so
too, so I
awesome.
can provide a fresh perspective on this.
we
But yeah,
we hope that you will. That's awesome.
I really loved this episode. I think it would have been interesting to see this show.
We're getting it now.
We'll get it.
Yeah.
I'm actually
It's true.
I'm very unpopular in that I'm not a big fan of Captain Kirk, so I did enjoy
Oh, that's gonna be
I did enjoy
really
Captain
happy.
Pike a lot better. I'm a huge Spock fan, but I'm not a big Captain Kirk fan. So I did like Captain Pike better. I thought he was very interesting.
Emma,
I liked
do you
the
know
more
about-
cerebral quality? in the
Do you
show.
know about Strange New Worlds, Emma?
No.
So, do you know Discovery Season 2? Have you watched Star Trek Discovery at all?
I
We
watched
didn't want to dive
the
into
first
that right
episode,
away,
and-
but we started watching.
We watched a little bit of that.
We watched
I'm-
the first like 10, 15 minutes, and we couldn't get through it.
Oh, no. Both of you couldn't get through it.
Right. I had tried when it first came out, but then I since we had just
You're
seen
a
the
tou-
Cage, and
Well,
we
well-
really liked. Oh, go ahead.
no, sorry. I wanted to hear what you were saying.
No, I mean I've always loved Captain Pike. He's a gruffer.
He's a little bit more dark.
Yeah, he's a darker captain than Kirk, and there's books and stuff that that kind of explore that era, but I regret that we never got to see more, obviously, of Jeffrey Hunter as Pike.
He died in 1969.
Right, he died
so-
early death,
Yeah.
and he was fabulous. In my head, I just imagine sometimes just what it would have been like, that crew, because it's not just Jeffrey Hunter, but it's the whole dynamic. It's the guy who plays the Doctor.
Database
Yeah.
Boy is doing a good job. Look at these banners. that
Boyce,
appear.
right? I think his name is
Dr. Boyce, yeah.
Boyce, right? Yeah, Boyce. and then,
Doctor,
of
that would be
course,
Dr. Philip Boyce, played by
Dr.
John
Philip
Hoyt.
Boyce,
Yep.
played by John Hoyt. That's right. But there's one of the things that I really love about The Cage is it's the way it emphasizes the darker elements of human nature, which I think it stands in contrast to what other Trek pilots tend to do, which is, they're more optimistic and stuff. But this one, the fact that the way to break the mental link with the Telosians is like to delve into the I think they say the more primal emotions. I found that interesting. The fact that that's what the captain uses to get ahead, and it's a very interesting pilot.
You start off right away in the first episode with that the captain he's tired of being captain and making decisions that may lead to other people's death, and that's not something you see in the canon original show.
Yeah, it's refreshing. I mean, to me, it's refreshing in contrast to
it's definitely ahead of its time
Kirk
for the
and
60s.
Now I know
I'm agreeing with all those things you're saying.
Star Trek Beyond, I think, kind of paid a bit of homage to this because Kirk in that movie, he's kind of considering leaving the Enterprise, and
it's because he knows he's not. It's because he knows he's not the real Captain Kirk. He's depressed.
But I being the 50th anniversary film, I was wondering if that was meant to be a nod to the doubts that Pike was having in the pilot.
That's
what do you guys
really cool.
think?
Also,
what do you guys think about that?
I don't think I don't think Simon Pegg went there specifically.
He did say he was watching a lot of TOS when they were writing that script.
He said they were watching a lot of TOS and Enterprise. So that's where they got like the Xindi references, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But they wrote this script in what was it, 3 months, 3 weeks?
It was fast. It was fast tracked.
It was really rough. I don't think they were specifically thinking of the cage. But then Simon Pegg's a big fan of the franchise anyway, so maybe he was.
We have a comment from the audience. I don't think Pike's crew would have been as fun since the sarcasm and comedy is missing based on what we see in the cage. But I think there is much more comedy with Where No Man Has Gone Before.
I agree with
we'll
that.
Be doing next.
It is just a pilot, though. Like it's one episode, which means all the characters would have been like deepened and broadened.
I mean, he is persnippety. I mean, Captain Pike at the end of the episode is like, "What is this? A cadet ship?" Or something like that. And then he's also like, well, okay. So I want to talk about the scene on the bridge that everyone likes to talk about, just because when he's like, "I'm still getting used to women being on the bridge." You guys,
they cut that out of the menagerie, so it's technically not canonical.
Oh wow! I'm glad to hear that. I didn't know that.
It's only
we know that.
Only the stuff that was used in the menagerie.
Oh really?
Canon Cop.
I didn't know that.
Ooh, call Canon Cop.
But they released it while they were releasing The Next Generation on TV.
Yes, but it was always
it was meant to be like a behind the scenes nugget, like a gift to fans of Star Trek. Like, look what could have been. It's basically like, this is the road not taken.
It's basically like a big deleted scene because the ending of the cage, the ending of the cage can exist with the ending of the menagerie part 2 because
it's true because is that Pike, that scene, they use the scene of the illusion Pike to represent the real Pike in the menagerie. You're absolutely right.
Right.
I was gonna debate that. We were actually talking about. I mean, I don't know if we want to get to that.
Look at
now,
Sean.
but
Sean's like, what the hell are these people talking about?
It's so much shit.
Oh, no.
It's amazing.
That's why it's good to start. That's why it's so good to start that's why I called this the red carpet event to the main event.
I genuinely thought that once they aired it on TV, because the rule is if it's Star Trek and it's on TV or as a movie, it's canon, right? That's basically the general rule, the broad rule.
I mean, I think now it's the rule, but like Fathery, I think, agrees with me that it was not presented that way.
The entire rule would be like the shitty crap ad that they do for like the Tribble cereal at the end of the that I think everyone can agree it's just a joke. It doesn't count. But okay, so this is not canon. This is crazy. I'm mind blown.
I don't know.
Going back to the number one scene, though, let's just talk about it for a second. I love Fathery's attention to canonicalness. We'll have to get some more Star Trek we'll have to get some more Star Trek scholars in here to talk about the canonical importance. By the way, the cage is not on your timelines map, so it would seem that subconsciously you also.
No, it's because I chuck it in with the original series.
It is odd because Captain Pike is canon.
It's released with the original series on all the streaming platforms. It's bunched with it, so I just leave it as the original series.
Nice. It says here, going back to the scene on the bridge, in universe though, it could also work. I was watching it last night with my friends from Drunk Space Nine. We were watching it on Starfleet Boy After Dark, and you can watch it, guys, and sync up, and we kind of line up pretty good with the episode, and we have a lot of gags. But one thing that I did notice is that maybe it's like a crass joke between Number One and Captain Pike that we don't get as future audiences, but in world it makes sense because they're making fun of like 2020 or something like that, or the attitudes of the past, and so that's another way you can explain it away if you want to make it nice.
I actually joke around like that now. Like earlier today, I was watching an episode of the old Twilight Zone with my girlfriend, and there's this episode where this professor is like an immortal, and he's getting married to this other professor's daughter, and there's talking like man to man, and like the woman is like, oh yeah, I guess I'll go do the dishes, and then he's like, oh yeah, and you need to go study for your exam, and she's just like, okay, and just like real compliant, like these two men. And I like jokingly said to my girlfriend, like, I wish women would be this well behaved now, or something like that. I guess there is like a way you could do like a tongue in cheek.
Father, you're canceled now.
Like that.
Goodbye.
Oh, no.
That's it. I just. That's it. You're done. I do want to give a huge shout out to some of the performers who have died. Sadly, Jeffrey Hunter, who died tragically, we found out about that last night. Susan Oliver, the actor who plays Vina, died in 1990. Of course, our beloved Majel Barrett, who plays Number One, who the character now has a name, which is Una, which is quite appropriate for Number One, in 2008. And Spock, Emma's favorite character, and Sean's least favorite character in Star Trek. Sean says there's too much Spock in Star Trek. But Leonard,
I definitely find that Star Trek as a franchise is too Spock-centric. I find he's like the Wolverine from the
he is the Wolverine. Yes.
He is
the most iconic.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like we get a shoehorn him in every series, and we got to have now we have technically two versions of Spock current.
We mentioned John Hoyt, who plays the Doctor, who it's rumored, or not rumored, it's favored that I guess there's a lot of buzz that people would like Jeffrey Combs to play this role in Strange New Worlds, and I personally agree with that. I would love it if Jeffrey Combs got a role like this on Star Trek.
Old enough?
Yeah, he can pull it off. He doesn't have to. He's relatively near Dr. Boyce, I think.
I think he'd be better suited as an alien, though, don't you? Like,
I want him sans makeup. I want the Jeffrey Combs on Star Trek. I want to see him.
Combs.
That would be weird.
I don't know.
Full Combs.
Given that there's already
that would be the first time he'd be like an actual main character.
Yeah, but given that there's already going to be like 3 white people in Strange New World as part of like the main cast with Spock, Pike, and Number One, I am predicting they're going to probably go more diverse with all of the other regular cast members, and I don't think.
I think that Strange New World should pull a Hamilton on Star Trek and just cast anyone as anyone else who's left as any race, it doesn't matter, or any species or whatever. Jose Tyler was played by Peter Durea, and he died in 2013. And then we have who I love, Yeoman J.M. Does anyone know what J.M. stands for? I don't know. I wonder if it was a homage to J.M. Barrie. But J.M.
Jimmy Marie.
Jimmy Marie, I like that.
I just made that up. But
Jessie Marie, I like that too. But Laurel Goodwin played her, and she is still alive. So cheers to Laurel Goodwin, she's the living person from this iconic episode of Star Trek. So if she's still around, we gotta see what she's up to. I didn't have time to research everything.
She needs a Strange New Worlds cameo.
She does. I think she does. That would be an amazing thing.
The Telosians have all passed away as well.
I believe so. Yeah, it's true.
Are they not eternal?
That's not true. I just saw them on Discovery.
No, they're not.
That's
No,
true.
they were a dying
brought them
race.
back for
Remember, a
Discovery.
dying race. They're a dying race.
They
Yeah.
chose. They thought humans were too primitive and violent, still in the TOS future, to be compatible.
Friends
So
of
they
Q.
so they decided, okay, we're just we can't. We're just gonna die. So we'll make a beautiful habitat for the survivors of the crashed ship. We do get to see the spoilers. We do get to see the Telosians again in Star Trek Discovery, and I think, if memory serves, which is the episode where we get that, is awesome, and I highly recommend to the audience that you go and see that. And as a matter of fact, I even liked, visual aesthetic differences aside, I think that the heart of Q&A is really sweet. Like, I think it like kind of does a nice job of portraying a Spock that is of this era, of this time period, if you will.
Shouty Spock.
What is it?
Shouty Spock. When he
Shouty
would yell all the
Spock.
time.
He yells all the
He
women!
yells at the page. Yeah, and
The women!
he's like that for the first 2 or 3 episodes. If you watch Where No Man Has Gone Before or the Carbomite Maneuver, it kind of takes him a while to figure it out. And compare that to William Shatner as Captain Kirk. Love him or hate him. I don't think we would have had a successful Star Trek show without Shatner's Captain Kirk. And Where No Man Has Gone Before, you said you're going to talk about that one next, but like Kirk is like Kirk in that first episode right off the bat. And whereas Spock, it kind of took a few episodes to evolve. And if you compare that to this episode with Jeffrey Hunter's Captain Pike, Leonard Nimoy talked about like acting against Jeffrey Hunter in this episode, and how Jeffrey Hunter is they're like William Shatner. They're both trying to play like the leading man, like the strong heroic captain. But Jeffrey Hunter is a much more kind of quiet and reserved and internalizing actor. And it was harder for Nimoy to do scenes with Jeffrey Hunter because he would ask Jeffrey Hunter, well, what are you doing in the scene? And he's like, well, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just thinking. I'm reserved. I'm internalizing. And so Nimoy was put in a weird position as Spock because he's like, well, I can't do nothing because he's doing nothing. Whereas if you compare this episode to Where No Man Has Gone Before, and you look at Nimoy bouncing off of Kirk, and they have that perfect chemistry and that perfect dynamic that is what made this franchise so successful. And Shatner is always doing something, and he always has that energy. And a lot of people give him a hard time, but I think there is actually some damn fine acting taking place.
I agree. No, I'm a huge fan of William Shatner. I'm joking when I do all these like things.
I'm 4 episodes in my original series episodes reviews. Technically not the same 4 as you're talking about because I'm doing the release order.
Release
production order. And like I'm constantly impressed by his acting. Every time, like, this is amazing. He does a really good job in those situations where he has to really think about the situation and weigh the pros and cons of what he's going to do. He's really good.
I think he kind of seems more like a stage actor sometimes, just like really over the top, like where it would make sense on stage, but it's like for TV, it's just too much.
That could be seen as like a way to lead.
I saw this interesting thing from Patrick Stewart that was really cool that gave me some insight into that. And Patrick Stewart was talking about how on Star Trek Picard and revisiting Star Trek and filming on TV in general, because I think it's been a while since like Blunt Talk was like his return to TV in a sense, but like since he's done a high production show like this, and he was talking about how like even during TNG they had to enunciate and be louder because the microphone technology at the time could only pick up certain things, and now we have like we can really hone in, like we have microphones that can like really pick up like some really interesting things. But back then in the 60s, for sure, you had to be a little bit more of an emoter. And Humbert, I will challenge you because
doesn't explain his face though.
Yeah, it does. It does explain his face. That might be just like a personal difference in like aesthetics, but like it does explain his face because also if you look at TV in general, people are just more emotive. It's because we see it now on film. We're watching this on film, but had we watched it on television at the time, we might have been watching it on black and white in a not so crisp picture, or in color in a not so crisp picture. So audiences back then had to give a performance that was closer, not quite all the way, but closer to stagecraft than to TV, like than to cinema, if you will. So I think there's a valid argument for the overacting being part of the technical, process of making TV in that time. But
I agree with you, but the whole microphone argument, I have a story that can counter that. It's actually a Bonanza story, but I won't tell it on the air now. I'll tell you later, Sal. It's a long,
oh, okay.
It's a
I
long
like Bonanza.
story involving Lauren Green and all that stuff. But
Trekker Prize is in the house.
Oh, hey, Trekker Prize.
Trekker Prize.
But I do want to bring up a question for all of you. One of the things that came up when Emma and I watched it, which is, setting aside the canonicity. What? How do you say it? The canonicity. Thank you, of the pilot. One of the questions that you walk away with at the end of the episode, which I think is compelling, is Vina's decision to stay on the planet. It really it reminded me of the choice made presented in the Matrix. Do you take the blue pill? Do you take the red pill? Do you take reality, or do you take fantasy? At the end, you essentially have. The Telosians show Pike Vina's true state, in which she's obviously malformed in some way, and
severely malformed,
and
they didn't even know what humans. They didn't even know what humans look like, so they were just like, maybe a human looks like this. Like they're like, it's like
right. We get she's obviously not not someone. She would be disabled in some way. She could be looked at as perhaps being disabled.
The medical
we're not really
ugly after they did their surgery on her.
All right.
Well, that's what Emma was saying, right? Go ahead.
I don't know. I think we don't see enough of her, and I think it would have been a more interesting show if we'd seen
Star Trek Discovery. Spoilers.
We're talking about where we are right now. I haven't seen that, and I'm new to the show in some ways. I haven't seen everything, so I'm gonna comment on where we are now. I can't comment on the menagerie yet because I haven't seen it.
I appreciate that. I'm just being a little shit.
Anyway, I think this episode would have been more interesting if we had seen some of what Vina wanted, or some of her fantasies. Was always she just wanted to please Pike, and what were his fantasies. But it would have been more interesting if we'd seen what she wanted as a character, because I don't really understand her choice at the end and exactly what was going on with her. And I'm not sure whether we should refer to her as, is she disabled? Because she's a little crooked. I don't know if it would be painful for her.
She's disabled.
To exist.
She's disabled for a human.
I don't know if it would be just disabled or disfigured. I'm not sure.
Or disfigured,
which is correct
I think disfigured is more accurate.
But I think I got the impression that
I don't know. If she did go back with them, would she be in pain? I don't know.
But the idea, it
really depends what you think, because in the time when this aired and Star Trek the original series, there's going to be a lot of, and also this goes for any Star Trek. Sometimes real life kind of surpasses what science fiction predicted in terms of things like medical, for example, right? So by the time we get to a show like Star Trek The Next Generation, her injuries could probably be corrected very easily, and she could be restored to
I feel
to a human who looks aesthetically human or whatever. But I guess in this
Bones,
time you couldn't do it.
From what we see later in canon with Bones in the original series, they seem to fix everything just with waving a thing over people. So
I think the problem has been
this
internally modified. I think that's she's been internally modified. They kind of re-put her back together and pieced her back together in a way that maybe you can't fix it straight away, because even in the Next Generation they can't fix Worf's spine or something unless they do this very risky procedure. So there are things that and Pike himself finds himself in the chair. So
Mhm,
there are
right.
some things that they can't fix, I suppose.
Spoilers, more
maybe-
spoilers for Emma.
No, it's okay. I've read a little bit about it because I was looking, like, I was interested, like, what does the disability community think about this episode? But everything that I found on that was primarily about the menagerie, or about the cage and the menagerie together. So I couldn't find anything, and I'm not going to comment on all of that without seeing the menagerie first.
To bounce off what you were saying, though, I agree, and I think it would have been more interesting because I kind of regret never seeing what actually happened, like the crash, what she had to live through, and that would help you better understand her decision and like where she's coming from, because she hasn't seen humans in a long time. She maybe hasn't, I don't know, she hasn't had like a relationship in a long time. We just felt like the touch of another human, which I think a lot of people have realized that we take a lot for granted during this situation.
I thought Captain Pike was really cool at the end to kind of give into some of the things that he thought was very like horrific about the Telesians at first. Like, for example, he lets Vina have an illusion version of him. I mean, like, that would be really cool if, like, I don't know, like if Leonardo DiCaprio let me have a version of him to, like, have as my husband. Like, like, I think today humans would be mostly horrified by that notion, so I like that about it. But I also like how the whole time he's like fighting the Telesians and he's like using anger to like block them from reading his mind, and he must be thinking like the worst things. But at the end, when he realizes that they are a dying people and how tragic their story actually is, and then it like connects for him that like this is why they're so desperate, this is why they're doing these like insane things, all of a sudden he's just like, is there anything we can do? And that was like, that kind of gave me chills and like goosebumps in a way, because I was like, this is like the right from the beginning, from the pilot, they were showing this like concept of like, like what understanding the other or friendship or like, just like going through conflict and coming to a resolution in a positive way can produce. And so I really love that about him and the whole thing. When it comes to that.
I want to piggyback on that, because a lot of early science fiction is sort of like you see the alien and you zap them, right? But yeah, obviously it's like what you just said. They, I mean, I actually don't feel very sorry for the Telesians, because I mean, really, they were running an alien zoo, right?
I agree. Like, I don't feel like they're showing enough of.
I mean, Pike didn't do anything to save the Birdman who's down the hall.
I love the Birdman who was down the hall, by the way.
The Birdman of Alcatraz, the Birdman of Talos 4. Right?
I like the red gorilla man person.
The red gorilla
we don't
man.
know. By the way, we don't know their genders, Doctor. I might point out they're people.
That is true. That is true.
My name is Anakin Skywalker, and I'm a person.
Okay,
Do you think that in Strange New Worlds, one of them has escaped and he's gonna come back for revenge? Okay, Pike, you left me in the cage.
You left me in the
cage.
You left me here alone.
But, you're right that they're not their actions are inexcusable. I think what I'm talking about is Pike himself, like why Star Trek is showing. Star Trek shows that humans in this case, but I would say people of the Federation is a more modern interpretation of it. People of Earth maybe one day, humans, and we all unite and we just realize we're all one, species and all that stuff.
God, do we need that now?
Those people are so forgiving and so ready to, and it reminds me, and this is why I love Q&A in the I'm sorry for the spoilers, but okay. We go everywhere. But in the Turbo Lift, one of the questions that Spock asks Una is, what are the three seminal features of Captain Pike? And I'm just quoting off the top of my head, so I'm sorry this is gonna be butchered, but she says like his capacity to like change his opinion about something when or understand like others, his like unsentimentality, which is true in this episode, you see it, and also that other thing, and then his love of horses, which you also see in this episode. So I just love that those are things that like that Discovery era, if you will, or the Kurtzman era, whatever you want to call it, is like kind of taking these like really important like character lessons, these really important like like traits of leadership, and paying homage to them in a future story. I don't know. I just love all that Starfleet. I am Starfleet boy after all.
The other thing they added the detail of his dad being a a theologist, like someone who studies religion.
That's
and
right.
Here they have him when the Telosians literally put him in hell, and they're saying oh yes, from a
one
fable,
of your fables, yeah,
you heard as a child. He's like, yeah, because in Discovery they established his dad taught him about Earth religions, and so he would have heard about the
things we don't
Christian
see again in
idea.
Star Trek. Things we don't see again in Star Trek until later in Deep Space Nine, where we explore religion kind of deeply with the Bajoran religion, right?
Oh, and speaking of Deep Space Nine, that is the other time when they try to launch a Star Trek show by showing a kind of reluctant, jaded captain who's grizzled and burnt out. And he's just like, yeah, I don't really want to be here, being in command of this assignment right now. So it was a weird way to try to kick off the show by having a guy who's like, I don't know if I really like doing this.
I completely agree with you, and I think that's why these are the two of my favorite pilots for Star Trek, is because there's a lot of similarities. There's an enormous amount of exploration of Pike, of the lead character in this pilot. You really get to know Pike, just as you do Cisco, in Emissary. But going back to Pike, I mean, we get to know a lot about him, and what I find interesting is that they're one of my favorite scenes in the pilot is when they go to the Orion slave girl sequence. I love the way
which was cut out of the menagerie. We found that out from Chris last night on the live stream. So I didn't realize that. I forgot that.
It's in there.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Chris, you were wrong.
They used that in the end credits 1,000 times of
Oliver
and doing her Orion, that freeze frame of her.
That proves that Chris Collins is from the Mirror Universe. You saw a different Star Trek than we did, and you convinced me. I'm just kidding.
The way Vina, because Vina is trying to find, the way she comes to the realization that what she needs is not a memory, but a fantasy of something that hasn't happened, in order to try to snare the captain in, and that whole sequence is based off of a conversation that Pike has with Boyce, right, where he says, well, maybe I could be be an Orion slave trader or whatever, and he didn't mean it. It was just an off the cuff remark that he made, but it was something. It's something from the darker recesses of his mind, really. And
also the battle was also from one of his experiences when he was on.
But
he
that
mentions,
really happened,
right, Rigel? But it's cool how they just yeah, you're right.
Right.
They were digging into his mind.
But what I'm saying is that wasn't a memory. That was something pulled from the darker recesses of his mind, and the way Jeffrey Hunter played the scene, I think, is fabulous. When I was a kid, I didn't understand why he was reacting the way he was. If you look at the scene, he's really playing. It's revulsion. It's this intercut of Vina dancing, right, and then the two other slave traders egging him on, oh, look at how beautiful she is, eh?
I saw that too. Revulsion. I saw the revulsion, but I also saw something else, which was a fire, almost he was kind of going mad in a way, the way his eyes are kind of, right, and he runs away. He can't handle it. So yeah, it's true.
He can't handle it because he is that part, and this is
it's his ultimate fantasy.
It's his okay, but it's a dark fantasy. It's
true.
He personally would not. He is ashamed of that.
He's ashamed. Yeah,
he is.
He's ashamed. And he runs away from it. It's a real violation almost of
that's really great. I never thought about that.
And the way Jeffrey Hunter plays it is fabulous. And it took years. It took for me to grow into an adult to understand. When I was a kid, I didn't understand why he was reacting that way. But as an adult, I understand. We all have dark things inside of us that we're not, that we think that we certainly don't want to share with anybody. and the idea that this pilot incorporates a theme like that, and we're seeing that trait displayed by the lead character of the show, I think was very daring, and it's very similar to Cisco in Deep Space Nine. I mean, we saw a lot of aspects of Cisco in that pilot, and I feel he's a really well-rounded character, and we get a lot of Pike in this pilot, and I just love the Cage. I really do.
That's awesome. I think it's gonna be a universally maybe. I don't know what the ratings are gonna be. We'll see. But PJ's here from Boatwreck, and he asks TOS televisions versus Discovery televisions. I think only a few of us can answer this. I have just like a sentimental attachment to the TOS television, so I'm gonna go with the TOS televisions. Although I think that the Discovery televisions were beautifully executed as updates, as reimagined updates.
My vote goes for, obviously, I don't even acknowledge Discovery, so
I don't understand why they had to change them. I am genuinely puzzled by the changes that they do to all of the existing species, but okay.
Because an attorney at CBS had to make it 25% different, and then we can charge people for an additional license to make merchandise.
Right. I'm sorry. Hashtag fire Alex Kurtzman.
I don't know if that was his decision, but I like the TOS look. I love the aesthetics of the original series. I think it is a beautiful show. I think when people say, "Oh, it's so cheap and low budget," they're not realizing that it was like a very expensive show in the '60s. That a lot of time
it was equivalent to, at the time, it was $500,000, if I'm not mistaken, to make. That's $500,000 to make one pilot episode. That's like that's a lot of money in 1969. Like, you could buy a house for $10,000 in 1960.
Should we adjust that for inflation?
Yeah, someone in the audience, database boys, adjust 500,000 for inflation and let us know what that would cost.
They should have done a little bit better on those paper rocks with that much money.
I have to say, like,
it's charming though.
We were watching it last night on Starfleet Boy After Dark, which, by the way, if you don't know, it's like a Friday night hangout session with the guys from Asking Linda's and Drunk Space Nine mostly, and anyone who wants to come along. Father's been on.
I've been on there.
Yeah, fun stuff. But we watched this episode live, so we synced it up. We were all watching it at the same time, and also some of the audience members were watching it at the same time. And then you could do that. We keep giving timestamps, so if you want to do it after the fact, you can go back and kind of line it up. But it came up, like, and I just found them, like, I just thought, like for some, I get it, like, they don't, like, there's these gigantic backdrop paintings, there's like,
I like the paintings.
trees that look like paper mache, like, you know, there's like a lot of things, but like, I kept getting lost in it because I felt like it was cohesive stylistically throughout the whole thing. Like,
I like it. I just had a problem with, like, the specific paper mache rocks, because there were, like, real rocks in front of them. And then, like, these paper mache rocks, they just didn't have, like, enough detail, or they had too much detail.
You'll
Those
get used to
specific
that.
rocks, the background, the painted backdrops and stuff.
I like the.
You're gonna see a lot of those rocks. Though.
You're gonna see a lot of
I've seen
Exact
some of them
same
before.
rocks, yes.
the same. The same tumbleweeds too. By the way, those tumbleweeds
Nice
are
tumbleweeds.
everywhere in Star Trek. There's like it's like every planet has those same tumbleweeds.
Even
I also want to.
they continue on with the tumbleweeds.
I wish we had more
They
tumbleweeds
do.
up there.
It's true. I want to also, since we're talking about the production, I didn't see a remastered version. I know that there's one out there, but the version I saw was the high res scan, I guess, like the film. So the original, you know, film and special effects elements, and I was blown away at how like when the laser cannon. I'm sorry, I know some people are gonna argue with me on this, but like the laser the colors, and then the sounds and the feeling you get from like the intensity of like the laser cannon. It worked. I know I was listening in headphones, and that's a more intense experience, but it worked really well to like evoke those like emotions and things like that. And it just looked great. I thought it looked great. Like I thought I was gonna get a seizure from all the flashing. You know,
it was very flashy.
it was very flashy.
I liked it.
It's
Oh,
new
overall,
episodes
I
on
like
the planet.
But I've never seen, as far as I know, I've never seen a remastered version. So it was definitely the old ships and
there is one.
and things like. There is one, right?
Yeah, it's on the Blu-ray.
Okay, of season
That's what they've
3.
got on Netflix.
It's
Yes,
on the
so
DVD too. Yeah.
The season 3 box set includes the full uncut hour-long episode of The Cage, and they have the CGI enhanced cut of it, and also like the original. But I do have to go. But it was nice talking to y'all. And
Father's a huge fan of TOS, and we talked a lot about him coming on. So it was
Yes.
really great to have you, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
yeah, I love me some TOS.
Live long
I'll
and prosper.
be back. Bye. Nice meeting you, Emma.
Bye. You
Later.
too.
Nice meeting you. Bye.
Oh, what just happened? The
After
layout
night.
change. Database boy, database boy, fix that. Oh, there we go.
I wanna ask all of. It's too bad he left, Fatherly. But I wanted to ask you guys which of the supporting characters, which is aside from Spock, because obviously Spock goes on to the original series, but of the supporting characters that don't make the cut from the pilot, who do you wish would have gone on?
I like the
we
kid
get
who
our wish
always-
because all of these characters. Oh, you mean the actors, the performers themselves?
The characters, yeah, the actors,
okay.
characters, yeah, whatever, yeah.
Well, we do get Majel Barrett, which is great because she comes back as Nurse Chapel, of course,
No, but I mean, as
and the right
it would
and
be
the
number
computer
one
voice.
for her, right?
We're gonna get the characters in Strange New Worlds. So
No. Okay, you're not listening.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, I want you to just forget. Okay,
TOS
I'm saying,
existed.
right?
Yeah,
No,
the way it does. No.
the secondary characters in the pilot of the secondary characters in the pilot, which do you wish had made the cut to make it to TOS?
I like the kid who's always standing the whole time, and on the bridge, like right next to like the elevator.
Yes,
The kid who just like
He's
stands there and
hilarious.
looks sad the entire episode, and he never
think
moves.
I think
wish
the
that
hot
kid stayed.
the hot crew member who was always behind the tumbleweed in the planet scene, like he was always kind of hiding behind a tumbleweed. He would have been a great character to go on to the originals.
Did you want him as a character, or did you just want him as like a hot guy standing there in every episode?
Just always, he has to be in every
He's a
episode
character.
of my Star Trek.
He holds a tumbleweed in the
He
background.
hosts the tumbleweed in each
Yes.
episode.
The one serious person in the audience, Gary, is saying Boyce, who's actually answering your question earnestly. No,
Thank you, Gary.
I agree. It would have been interesting to see Boyce, but then like, because he's chief medical. If you really were to like transition him into the original series, and you would have.
I love Dr. McCoy too much. I could not. I mean, he would have to be like a secondary character or something like that. But yeah, I think Dr. See, that's the problem for me. As much as I love The Cage, and I think it's a great achievement, and it's really interesting to see what the road not taken was. To me, Kirk, Spock, McCoy, Uhura, Sulu, Chekhov,
Could have
Scotty,
added number one
like
in
that's.
there. I would say number one. She was my favorite.
She was pretty cool, and we get her in Strange New Worlds, played by Rebecca Romaine. Oh my
It's not
god,
the
it's gonna be
same.
so good. It is
Not the same.
not the
actress,
same.
though.
You're
I
right,
would've
but we
liked
can't.
her to continue.
I don't like
one
her
of-
in Discovery. I know you guys haven't seen that yet, but I don't like what they did with number one. They have.
What do you mean? What do you mean you don't like what they did with number one? Like she's great in Star Trek Discovery.
I mean,
Go ahead, Sean.
sorry to go into the controversial side of it, but there's a very modern female empowerment aspect to the character, which I don't think was necessary. Like, she was an awesome character without having to constantly point out or make a point of the fact that she is a female character. It's like she was number one, and she was awesome.
She doesn't do that ever. What you're talking about?
I disagree.
But no, she does. Like she doesn't do that.
I disagree.
Fight!
Fight! Let's go!
No, we have these, like, well, I don't want to get into the details and the nitty gritty of Discovery, but there are elements where, like, Discovery is a more openly kind of feminist show, but they do it in a way where like they belittle. Anyway, whatever. I don't like the way they. I'm a big fan of Rebecca Romaine. She's great. I hope they write the Strange New Worlds #1 closer to what she was in the Cage rather than how she was in Discovery. That's my hope.
I saw a totally different show
I'll
than
agree
you
with
because
that, even though I haven't seen
you
it.
can't you don't have an opinion. Neither you or the doctor have an opinion in
No,
this
the
in this
doctor has an
one.
opinion.
Fine, I get no
The
opinion.
doctor has an opinion, and I want to hold off on that because I do want to continue to talk about the Cage, but I do echo Sean's grievances against the way the producers have decided to present some of the characters from the Cage and Discovery. At least what I saw in Discovery. But bringing it back to the Cage, though, I just want to say I really, for me the pilot, it represents, like you said, it's a wonderful what if, if what a season of that could have been, if we'd managed to somehow have Jeffrey Hunter and this crew. I liked the fact that he's a sterner, gruffer captain. I thought it was interesting that Spock is less Spock, the traditional Spock that we're used to.
Which and you'll see him like you'll see him kind of like this in Where No Man Has Gone Before, because it's still kind of
right.
I didn't hear still kind of held on to those. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
What did Sean say? I didn't hear what Sean said.
I don't know what I said.
Okay, all right. No, but yeah, I mean, I like the fact that this is kind of a proto Spock, I guess, because #1 is really, she's the one that gets the comments about, oh, you're like a computer, you're don't have emotions. So I was reading that when they went to the series, Spock really absorbed those aspects of the character of #1. So there were, Spock wasn't always intended to be as
the human side. That's what I said.
Right.
You see more of Spock's human side. Like if I know it is just the way Nimoy portrayed the character, but if you were to take it as an in-universe explanation, since he's half human, half Vulcan, you can he's more in touch with his human side, or more. I don't know. He doesn't refuse it as much, because in the original series he seems to always want to refuse his human side. He's always trying too hard to be too much of a Vulcan.
Yeah.
And this one he seems more, but I mean he seems almost troubled and concerned by the fact that he has a human side to him in the original series, whereas here he seems more kind of accepting of who he is.
Yeah,
when speaking, even if he's shouting all the time.
Yeah, it's true. It's almost like he regresses. Something happens. I mean, I think there are books that try to create a scenario where they explain why he in a way regresses, because he feels much more comfortable in his own skin. If you want to use the in-universe, reasons, he's much more comfortable in his own skin in the pilot and the early episodes, but then, like you said, in the original, later, most of the episodes of the original series, he is fighting that human side. And Sean, I found what you said in the you made a wonderful comparison to who was it in your last review? Alan Turing. That was, I had never really thought about that. That's a really intriguing comparison. If you could just kind of give a brief review of that, I thought that was really, really brilliant.
There's a movie called The Imitation Game, and I'm going to admit this: I had no idea who Alan Turing was before I saw The Imitation Game with Benedict Cumberbatch. And so we saw the movie, we were impressed by it. We all love Benedict Cumberbatch, and so do a bit of research on Alan Turing. And so he was like a brilliant mathematician back during the Second World War that the English government basically hired to decode the Enigma code, which was this special code that like all of the Nazi transmissions, all of the German transmissions, they used this code, and so he was the guy that basically designed and created the first computer, and that computer was able to like calculate and decipher the Enigma code. And he was a brilliant scientist, and he was a brilliant mathematician. He was very kind of reserved, at least like when you read about him and the way he was portrayed in the movie. He was very reserved, he was very calm, but he was also very intelligent. But he was homosexual, and so at that time, he was kind of frowned upon by the authorities. And we can't hear you anymore.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
You're muted.
You're
But
muted your own
he was, but he was homosexual like me. I
exactly.
just wanted to say that's all I wanted to say.
But
And a brilliant mathematician like you.
I'm terrible at math.
I would argue that even if there is struggle today, I would argue that like they wouldn't ask you to go through what he went through, as in like they did like corrective, what is it, like they started giving him pills and shit and what have you to kind of like correct his sexual orientation, that kind of stuff. Anyway, he had an internal turmoil, like an internal struggle, where he had to constantly kind of hold back like who he was, and he wanted to like fight against like his homosexuality, and he wanted to like stay very straight faced and like, you know, I'm not gonna show anyone who I am really. And I found that like that was comparable to Spock, especially in The Naked Time, where like it's an episode where they all catch this disease which kind of externalizes the internal struggles that they have.
Right.
So yeah, that's what I found. Like, anyway, wife on the tube kind of disagreed.
Wow.
But
Well, we just gave like 10 minutes to a movie that has nothing to do with Star Trek: The
I
Cage,
like
but
that,
I didn't. But I did enjoy it. No, I love that movie, by the way, and I thought
the
Ben.
imitation game
Ben
is great. And so is Star Trek. So there you go.
I like that comment that just passed by a couple minutes ago that called, I guess, Sean and us disco dissers. I
You guys
appreciate
are
that.
disco
Yeah.
dissers.
Disco dishers.
Dissers. Humbert's about to.
Disco dissers.
I like that.
Though we are talking about the cage, I do want, and like because I'm considered a Discovery disser here, everything except the Telosian, the unnecessary Telosian, like whether you agree or disagree with it, it was unnecessary. So everything except the unnecessary Telosian redesign, I think is great in Discovery when it comes to the cage, when it comes to Talos 4, when it comes to the story, like what the story elements that they added to Vina and Pike's relationship and all of that. I think it's all great. I think it's absolutely fine. Everything Pike related in Discovery is fantastic. And it's not just the performer. It really is like the stories. I think that they kind of found their footing when they were writing for that character.
What is Database doing with the camera angles? Stop it. Database. Pay attention, Database. Like, what the heck are you doing?
I do want to mention one unique thing about the original series, as opposed to most of Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, is that each of the episodes has been novelized. Which is unusual.
Every single episode of the original series has been
of the original series, and I'm going to show off. This is.
All right, Database. Now
that's a dictionary.
This is a
beautiful. Look at that! It's like an Easton Press book.
Yes.
Oh my gosh! This is like orgasmic.
Yeah, this is a beautiful gold leaf copy of the novelization.
Is that still available?
Yeah, so you can walk into any. Well, I mean, you can't walk into any Barnes and Nobles now, but under normal circumstances, you could walk into any Barnes and Nobles, and they have. This is an exclusive to them, and these are a reprint of the original novelizations by James Bliss, who was a noted science fiction author of the time. And I was curious to know if he novelized The Cage, being that The Cage, it's not, really was only presented to fans of the time through the menagerie. And what he did is that he essentially novelized The Cage, but it's the menagerie. So he did not write novelization about the plot in menagerie.
This episode was gonna be called The Menagerie, and then they changed it to The Cage.
Then they changed it to The Cage.
And I like there's a line in the picnic scene in Mojave where Captain Pike is from, and he's with Vina, and he says, "This is like." Why did you laugh at that?
Oh no, we were thinking of the picnic scene, and we paused it and we had a long discussion about what the hell are chicken tuna sandwiches. Because it's what he's serving his mom's chicken tuna sandwiches, and I was like, it's like back to the whole Jessica Simpson, like is it chicken or fish? What's chicken tuna? I just don't understand. I might find a recipe, but if I'll look it up, and if I find it, we'll post it.
I mean, is it chicken or is it tuna? Which is it? Is it chicken and tuna together?
I guess it's a mix of like chicken and tuna salad, but they don't say salad, so it's just very confusing.
It's a Vulcan thing.
And I don't know, like, why would you mix chicken and tuna salad? It sounds terrible.
I'm gonna ask my mom. I'm gonna ask my mom if that's something that she ever had, because she likes to experiment with fish and.
I feel like it's like if you had like a burger and a grilled chicken sandwich, but together. Like, those are both good things and they're similar, but you just don't put them together. I just don't understand.
Ever heard of surf and turf? Ever heard of surf?
Yeah, but you're eating like a steak and then you're eating,
this
some
could be
chicken or something. You're not putting them together in one sandwich, though.
In a small, tiny sandwich.
She calls it a chicken tuna sandwich, not chicken and tuna sandwiches. It's chicken tuna sandwich. It doesn't make sense.
I understand that people write these episodes and like, as the performer, you just act you fed your lines, but why don't they think about, like, the actor could have been like, wait a minute, what is a chicken tuna sandwich?
It might be some like really weird recipe that you find in one of those terrible 50s cookbooks. I guess that would fit in the timeline, but I've never heard of it, so
we'll
look
that's
it up,
brilliant. I'm looking it up right now. So there is such a, it comes up, Google finishes when you type chicken tuna.
Maybe she was supposed to say chicken.
It does finish
chicken,
it.
But it was crossed out in the script. It was like tuna. And then they just did both.
Yeah.
Whatever.
So there is such a thing as chicken and tuna salad sandwich. There's a lot of recipes for it online.
Yeah, but you would say chicken and tuna salad.
Yeah.
Right.
You wouldn't say chicken and tuna.
Chicken sandwich. It's very
you would say chicken and tuna salad sandwich, yes.
In the future, they have cans of
so weird to mix those things. It sounds terrible.
It's like Tuvix. It's a template for Tuvix, chicken and tuna. Anyways,
we had a whole hour conversation.
The first transport accidents were chicken and tuna.
No, it's terrible.
That's a Lower Decks episode waiting to happen. That was really good.
Actual chickens are accidentally transported to the sea and then they just drown.
After this show, we have to tell you a Lower Deck story that happened with us, but it's not fit for the air.
Oh, okay. Well, we have a few more minutes to go. I think we should kind of start heading towards the. This is the end. Dun, dun, dun.
Hold on. Let me just say that
we have barely addressed anything in the cage.
Oh, I'm ready. Let's hear your note. Let's go. Let's start lightning round. I think we should do lightning round.
Lightning round.
Lightning round.
All right.
Come on, audience. We're in the lightning round. If you have questions about the cage, we're here to answer.
I wish I were alive when this aired, and I were like an adult, and I got to watch this live, because I genuinely do think this thing must have been groundbreaking when it came out. Well, it never came out. I wish I were alive and it was aired on television. Because I think
that's the Kelvin timeline instead of.
I think
in the 60s?
Don't talk about Kelvin timeline here. So. We're talking the cage. You and Kelvin.
By the way, we now have a request for the Lower Deck story from an audience member.
Oh,
so
no.
You did this to yourself, Doctor. I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
Running out of time.
It's very inappropriate.
Wow, it's like that. It's that bad.
I think the cage is. I think it's great. I think it's long. And it's mainly because you've only got like the single plot, but that's just due to how it was done back in the day. A lot of the original series is the same thing. There's like one plot.
I did say timeline because because of your map, it made me it
Oh,
made
yeah,
me think.
you prominently featured the map, Gary, the infographic. I don't know.
The infograph, yeah, exactly. But anyways, so I didn't
I
mean to
like the
interrupt you.
performance. I like the performances. I think Dr. Boyce is very interesting. I do agree with Emma. I think it would have been cool to see more of Vina and her experience on this planet. But I guess they were really trying to get as much Pike across and as much of like the Starfleet or Federation values that come from Pike's leadership. Um, I have no problem necessarily with like the corny fight scenes or like the Orion slave girl like kind of scenes, because it's all about like fantasies and illusions and that kind of stuff. I think the concept of the Telosians is great, and in a strange way, I had never seen the cage. I saw the cage when I was older, but as a kid, and I don't know if I'm like an oddball here, but as a kid that did enjoy science fiction, I would always wonder about, hey, what if like I was captured by an alien species and put in a zoo, and I like it's just the thing that I would think about, like what if they would capture like a few humans.
It's a thing lots of people think about with the alien abduction,
So of course, like my
theories and all that.
fantasies would sometimes, like as an adolescent, my fantasies would go further, like, oh, what if they tried to make me breed? But then sometimes it would be just like, what would they feed me? And I think it's like kind of it's a concept that captures the imagination, and it's been parodied by The Orville, Rick and Morty, it goes on. Like I would even argue that Solar Opposites has something called The Wall, which is almost like a parody of this. There's so many science fiction shows.
The Orville has an episode with a cage of sorts
Yeah.
in season 1. We found out last night. I forgot about it, but yeah.
So yeah, I think it's great. I think I'm disappointed it's not canon.
No, it is canon. It is canon. The concept
Hubbard's
is
canonizing it.
yeah, no, it's
Just
canon.
had
I don't understand what was being said about it not being canon.
Which I agree about, and I can explain to you, but we're not going to do it right now.
Okay.
Right, but the
I have
concept
to learn about that.
the concepts presented, in the storyline echo Slaughterhouse-Five with Kurt Vonnegut, where he has the guy is kidnapped by aliens and he's having to relive parts of his life in the novel. So it's a high concept story that other sci-fi authors have explored, and it's a really strong story to start off Star Trek with. I really admire the fact that they went ahead and did such a strong story. It's a shame that it didn't air at the time, but I'm glad that some of it did make it to the screen through the Menagerie, because it's really a very compelling story, and I really enjoyed the actors in it, especially Jeffrey Hunter. Susan Oliver is also great. She has a very interesting. There's an interesting documentary about her. I think it's on Amazon. She ended up being one of the earliest female TV directors following her acting career. She had tremendous trouble being a director because of the sexism in the industry, but that was the avenue that she tried to explore, and but she's great in that part, and it really I think the episode really rides on the really strong performances of those two actors. I love the production design of the show, and for me, it's. Are we giving it just the ratings we always do?
Yeah, but we're not giving the ratings yet. We're gonna save that for the end, just like we always do. I want to say my little closing statement, I like that we're doing.
By the way, so
what?
I'm gonna have to leave.
Like, can you just wait a minute and give me my closing statement?
I can't wait a minute. You're not allowed.
Okay, thanks.
No, go ahead.
Since we're really rushed here, which I don't mind because I was planning for only an hour, but and we've gone over, and thank you, audience, for sticking with us. But I just want to say that for me, like, as a kid, when I saw this air in 1986, I was already fully vested and in love with Star Trek in the way that it was known, which is, Kirk, Spock, etc. The Star Trek that, is celebrated widely, etc., etc. And when I saw this, it was purely archaeological in a sense, in that it gave me a glimpse into what could have been, and I wasn't sold. I was like, oh, that's cool, but I'm glad Star Trek is the way that it is, and I'm really happy that we got what we got. And I will say that the only thing that changes my mind now as an adult when I watch it, I have more I'm more endeared to this, and here goes the trigger, is because of Star Trek Discovery, because of Anson Mount, and because of this story now being continued. I see so much more when I watch this because of the emotional connections and the storyline extensions that we've seen on screen. I'm not one who's read every book, so I know there's Christopher Pike books, and I know that we got a version of Captain Pike in the Star Trek J.J. Abrams films, but this Captain Pike that Anson Mount plays is very true to what Jeffrey Hunter, I think, was trying to do. And, he is the keystone in my mind of what's making Captain Pike a more compelling character. And I will say now that it's a close fight. Like, now I recognize things, like when I went back and watched not that there's a fight, but when I went back and watched The Cage, I was a lot more into it and a lot more compelled. And this is why I think that it's okay that shows do evolve and expand and keep telling stories, even if they don't completely fit the aesthetic perfection of like what the show was going on to do here. So I loved it. Now we can give the rating so that Sean can leave. And we didn't get a chance to talk about how the bridge is totally different, how the colors are all muted. There's so many things that you can see like that they tweaked when we go into TOS, and I guess we'll talk more about it as we go into TOS, and we still
in the
have
menagerie. We'll talk about
in the
it
menagerie.
in the menagerie.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in the menagerie. It's a great idea. But I'm excited that the next thing we're going to do, audience, is the next pilot. We were going to go in air date ordered like Trek on the Tube is doing on his channel, which is really cool. But we decided to do the two pilots back to back because it just makes sense from a discussion perspective. And then we'll revert to air order moving forward from that. So you'll be able to...
Don't you want to do just the air order? Just the production order?
Production order, yeah.
That's what I meant. Sorry, the production order. We'll be following what Trek... We're going to follow what you're doing. We'll sync up with you after that, like in other words. So Trek on the Tube is leading the way, which, by the way, a plug. Go and check out his Star Trek TOS reviews. He's doing them... He's doing it... He's doing his Trek on the Tube thing with the original generation and kind of pretending like it just aired, and it's really exciting to hear him do all. And there's no Easter eggs, unfortunately, though, because
not at this point, no.
Yeah, but I guess they're called Twinkle in the Eyes. You can reference things that later will become Easter eggs because of what we're seeing now, which is exciting. I just coined something for you. I don't know what twinkle in the eye means, but I'll go first because it's tradition for Starfleet Boy to give his rating first because no one believes my rating if I give it last, apparently. So I give.
So
what's that?
There's no Picard in this episode.
So it's true.
So it can't be a 10.
It's not a 10. You're right about that. 10. I give The Cage. It's kind of a unique thing because it sits in its own category. It's like a unique thing. But we'll lump it in the TOS. And as you know, my ratings are always from the gut. So I give this a 7.5.
I get
what the heck was that?
It's because
I don't know who's supposed to go next.
I think it's because he's offended that this episode has a lower rating than like the worst Picard episode.
Yeah.
I think that hurt him. I think that it's hurt his soul.
I will go on hurting you, Doctor.
This is for me. This is a 9. It's not a 10. It can't be a 10, but it's a 9. It's I really enjoy this. I've always loved this episode. I think it's a very strong story. I think it's a very compelling central character. I don't think this discussion was able to show all the love I have for it, but it's a 9 for me. I really love it.
Very nice.
Would you like to go? Next?
Yeah, so I'll go with an 8.5.
8.5, the highest.
8.5. All right.
The next highest rating. You're bringing the average up. It's good.
Sean.
No, I give it an 8. I think it really is a solid pilot. Maybe I think it does have a bit of like I don't know. I think it has maybe a bit of pacing issues. Sometimes it's a bit long, and I would have cut a few things down. But I think it's great. I think it's a great exploration of Pike's character, and I think it's groundbreaking on many levels. So.
We get a lot of cool comments, but overall, everyone's agreeing that it's highly rated. We got some 10s, some 7.5s, some 7s. So the average, I'd say it's fair to say, for this episode is around 8 for the group. We don't know what Fathery thought. He might bring the average up even higher, so hopefully we'll get a post Fathery update on that, and we'll let you know in the next episode. But guys, thank you for doing my very first Starfleet Boy live Star Trek discussion. This was very cool. Thank you for coming on and spending some time with us. Audience, you can please like below, smash the like button to get us up in the thing, subscribe if you enjoyed this, and then smash that like button, and then tune in next week as we go to the next pilot where no man has gone before, and we'll see what happens. Later.